All right, folks, let's dig back into this. This next session, what we're going to do is we're going to start to dig into some of these different blocks in the Gutenberg block editor. So we're going to focus primarily on the home page for now. We'll go and add some blocks to some other pages, but I want to kind of just explore a handful of the most commonly used blocks, and we'll try to just go ahead and style out the home page to look kind of like a real home page and not so bland. So I can go ahead and, again, I can click on edit right down here, or I can click on edit page up top. I'm gonna go ahead and click on edit page. All right, right now all we've got is this, we've got this header section that's got the word home, then we've got this paragraph block with all the lorem ipsum. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on these three little dots, and I'm gonna say insert after. So I wanna insert a block after, and actually let's do before. I'm gonna insert a new block before this Latin paragraph block. I notice that pushed this down, gave me this little block icon right here. By default, it's going to be a paragraph block always. So if I want to change that, I click on the little plus sign. Here we've got kind of the 6 most common blocks that are used. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click Browse All. This is going to pin that block editor to the left-hand side of the screen. And this first block that we're going to explore, it's kind of a cool one. It's called this cover block. So it's under media. Before we go add that, what I want to do is just kind of run through and just talk about these for a little bit. So notice that in one of the most recent WordPress updates, they added this little block preview, which is kind of cool. So it'll show you actually over on the right. I can't move the cursor there because it will change the block that I'm hovering, but it'll show you a preview of what that block is actually going to look like. This one right here, this classic block, that's actually the old school WYSIWYG that I talked about earlier. There we've got a code block if we wanted to actually insert some code, like for instance, like a MailChimp or Constant Contact, like, you know, little snippet of code that they've given you. Quote block we looked at on the sample page, and so on. So we've got all these different blocks in here, and it kind of gives you a little idea about what they're going to look like. There's a single image, there's a gallery. We'll use the gallery here in a minute. Audio file, and here's the cover block that I was just talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and click on cover. We've got a new block. It actually it bumped it down, so it did add a new block, but it put it down below this Latin text block, this paragraph block. That's okay. We can just click this up arrow, move it up once, move it up again, and now we've got it up top. So this particular block is actually a block inside of a block. It's a really simple nested block, but the cover block adds a nice kind of intro into a homepage or into a website. So right here, what we've got is we can either upload an image, or we can go in and look at the media library. We haven't added anything to the media library yet, so there's nothing there. We're actually going to upload a handful of images to get this cover set. So I'm going to click on upload, and this is going to open up a local folder on my computer. And so I've got a folder ready with some images, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick one of these images to upload. These are, notice the folder name is sized and named. So it's a really good idea, and we might, if we have time, talk a little bit more about images, but it's a really good idea to resize your images and rename your images. And resizing, you know, and like the proper size of an image is always a big question for a lot of people. How big is too big? How small is too small? We will talk about that a little bit later once we get some of these in there. For right now, I just want to kind of dig a little bit deeper into this cover block. But I am going to click on this mountain scene photo somewhere up in the Blue Ridge here, and I'll click open. And that's going to upload the image up to the WordPress site and onto the server. And now notice that the image is loaded and we have a cursor. And so notice over here on the right, we now have our paragraph block that we've dealt with a bunch. So the first block that we added there was the cover block, but it added the image, and then now the inside of that image is the second block inside of it. And so go ahead and just add some dummy text in here. We've got all of our same, you know, block settings for the paragraph block that we looked at before, both here inside as well as over on the right. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to click outside of the paragraph area. Notice if I kind of hover, I can see where that area is defined. So I'm going to click just anywhere on this picture. That changed the right-hand side of the page to now be the settings for the cover block. I am going to basically just start playing around with this cover block and show you how you can style this out a little bit pretty easily. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over here, and where it says change alignment, we can do left, center, or right, but we can also widen the block. So I'm going to do wide width. That widens it out a little bit. If I click on that again, we can actually do a full width, which is kind of cool. So this is considered like a full bleed is what they call it in the print world, where, like, for instance, with a business card, the graphic or the color would bleed all the way to the edge. And so we've got that set. It takes up kind of the whole header section now. We can also, if I click on this, I can reorient. I can change the position of that text and where it actually shows up. I could replace and change that out, either pick a new image or upload a new image there. We've only got this one image loaded so far, so we would have to upload something new. And then again, we have the same little 3-dot menu that showed up before. So I now want to draw your attention over here to the right, and we're going to explore some of these settings specific to the cover block. So this first one here is called fixed background, and this is a simple way to refer to the term, which is called parallax. So if I click on this, notice the image shifts around there, but what it really did is it kind of put that image on a plane back behind the website. So essentially it kind of creates this three-dimensional look here, where as we scroll, it almost looks like the image is pinned into the background, and that this tan up top and this tan down below kind of floats on top of it. And that's kind of a cool little effect that's real easy to do. We can also set a minimum height right here. We can put in a number of pixels, but we can also come down here and just grab this bottom bar and just scale it out. So you might want to create this appearance where, when somebody loads the site, it kind of gives you this full hero image concept. And that's where the home page or any page has a big giant image that kind of dominates and takes over. I'm going to scroll back up, and actually I'm just going to remove this, this pixel size altogether. Now, the next thing down here is I can add an overlay. Overlays are good where so that you can kind of create a slightly more visible. You can lay an overlay on top of the image so that the text can stand out a little bit better. That's how I should say that. If I click this accent color, whew, that's tough. That's tough to look at. But I can kind of roll through and change this out, and we can start to get some styling there. We can also change the opacity of this. So maybe let's go with this tan color, this grayish tan, and then I can play around with this. So I do want to be able to see those mountains and that and those clouds, so that looks kind of cool. So let's do that. Now, notice now, because this text is white in here, it's really tough to see that with that tan and the opacity layer. So maybe I can click inside of the text box here, and let's bump the size up. Let's go larger, and really based on the size of this, let's go up to something like 60. And let's see, that looks a little bit better. And then as far as the color settings, we can come down here and let's set the text color to black. And that makes it a little bit easier to see there. Let's click back onto the actual cover part of it. Now, one thing I want to point out is if I turn off the fixed background, we do get a couple other options back here. So what we do have is this focal point, and we can drag this up and around. So if we're not using the parallax concept, we can choose which part of the image actually shows up. So that way we can get it nice where it kind of does that, where it shows us the sky, the mountains, the clouds, and then down into the trees, which is kind of nice. Also down here, let's see, under the advanced section, we can also, we've got, again, the HTML anchor, and we've got some additional CSS that we can set. All right. All right, I'm gonna turn the parallax back on and leave that one on for this. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add another block. We're gonna move on from the cover block, and I'm gonna come up here, I'm gonna click this, and I'm gonna say insert after. So we want a new block after this cover block. And here I'm going to click on add block, and let's go ahead and do a gallery block. So we can either kind of browse through and find it, it's right there, but we can also just search for it. If you haven't explored the gallery, I'm sorry, the block editor much, then you might not know the name of it, so you might need to spend a little bit of time getting familiar with it. But I could come up here and just type in gallery, and there it is. Okay, and in this case, again, we're going to go back in and we're going to upload. This brings us back to a local folder on the computer. I'm going to select some images here. I'm just holding the control key and going through and clicking on that. And I'm going to go ahead and click open. This is going to go one by one and upload each image into WordPress and onto the server. And then when it's done, we get all the images that show in their true color. Let's go ahead and scroll down so we can focus on this a little bit. Again, there's our move the block up and down. And here, just like before, we could widen this block. I'm not going to do full width for this one. I'm going to do just a wide width. And that gives us kind of a nice, nice looking section there. So the gallery settings for this one, we can change the number of columns. We can drop it down to 2 or 1, and this is going to be pretty dominating if we did something like that. Let's go back down and we'll roll back through these and find a good looking one. So if you have an odd number, what it's going to do is it's going to try to stack into the columns that you set. And then if there's images left over, it'll do kind of a full image down below. We keep going. We've got 4. That looks pretty cool. Let's leave it like that. I will go ahead and show we can go all the way down to where it puts them all in a horizontal stripe. So that's neat. Let's go back to that one right there. Okay, further down here, we've got this crop image. Most of these are the same size, but notice, I'll click on this a few times so you can notice the subtle difference there. A few of these images are slightly different sizes, and so this crop image is going to automatically be selected. And that's nice. It just kind of makes them all uniform and fit in the same area. This link to section down below, this is going to tell WordPress what to do when somebody clicks on one of the images. So in this case, it's set to none. So basically, it doesn't link anywhere. It doesn't do anything when people click on it. We could click media file, which what that's going to do is it's going to let when the user clicks on the image, it's going to open it up in a new page, and it's going to show the full size image. So if they pick one of these smaller thumbnails, it'll open up the full size actual image. And then attachment page is another option. I would advise against this one. The attachment page creates a whole nother page on the site for each image that's used. And over time, that can get a little bit tough to manage. You can also choose the different sizes of images to pull in. By default, it's going to pull in the thumbnail, but you could say, medium or full size here as far as what it's going to, oh, there we go. We got a little bit of a preview there as it did that. And then under advanced, again, we have this anchor spot and then the additional CSS. All right, one of the other things I want to do here is I want to go up and I want to click on one of these images. And I could go in and I could edit where, the image where I'm going to replace this with another one. But I can also put a caption in here. I think I'm pretty sure that's the viaduct. So we'll do Blue Ridge Parkway. And we can go through and we can add a little caption. This is going to show up to the user. It's also going to show up to Google. You can put some keywords in here if you wanted to, help out with your optimization a little bit. It's not going to change the world. It's not going to instantly make you rank on Google for the term, but it's not a bad idea to kind of help people understand what's going on with this. You can also move the images around this way by just clicking these arrows to the left and to the right. All right. Before we move on too much further, we did some styling on this cover block. We added this gallery block in here. I'm going to go ahead and update this and just make sure that work that we've done actually does get saved there. All right. The next block that we're going to add is going to be we're going to go in here and let's drop another block in. And this one's going to be one called media and text. So go ahead and click that. And at this point, we're just going to, add a bunch of blocks and we'll rearrange things and move them around as we need to later on. With the media and text block, this is, as it says, it's a piece of media, a picture, next to a chunk of content. So I can come over here and Let's go click on the media library. Again, this is going to either let us upload files. Again, I think the stock photo, this is specific to the fact that we're on GoDaddy, and this is pulling in from the GoDaddy stock photos. Or we've got the media library, which are the images that I previously uploaded. Let's go back and we'll just go ahead and select something here. This does, again, this is specific to GoDaddy, and we can import this over. And we've got that image in there now. One thing that I do want to point out, and this is a good example. This is a good example of how to not size and name your images. So I want to talk a little bit about the settings over here. And to do this, I'm going to actually select one of my images, and we'll talk about this first, and then we'll jump back to the GoDaddy import stock photo. So this, to talk a little bit about images, this is always a really hot topic. I always get a lot of questions in classes about the sizing of images, the naming of images, the file types, those types of things. So I want to take a minute and just kind of walk through some best practices related to this, because if you don't have some basic rules in place early on, very quickly your image management can get out of control and your site can get really, really slow, specifically if you're putting in really big images. So as far as naming your images, it's a really important thing to rename the file, rename the image on your computer before you ever even upload it to the website. So if I click on one of these other ones that has multiple words, you can see right now we've got mountains with tree. This is what's called camel case. And so what I've done is I've capitalized the first letter of each word and then removed the space in between each word. We've also got the date of when it was uploaded to the site. We've got the file size of the actual image. This one's a little bit bigger than the rule that I'm going to tell you in just a minute. If I go back over, that one's too big also. There's a much smaller one. That's a little too small. Let me see if I can find a proper one. There we go. So a rule to keep in mind as far as the sizing of images, the weight of the image or how heavy the file is on your computer on the server, that's going to be represented in things like kilobytes or megabytes or gigabytes. With images, you really want to try to stay below, I'd say 150 kilobytes is about as big as you might want to make it, which is a fraction, it's about 1/10 of a megabyte. So you want to stay pretty low on the actual size of the image. And you can do that by, compressing or optimizing the photo. If you're comfortable with Photoshop, do that. If you're not, there's a lot of editing tools, both on your computer by default, as well as online. There's a handful of them out there. I can answer questions later on about how to actually do that. So that's one size, and I kind of consider that like the weight of the image. The next size to think about or look at is the size in pixels. And this is, the biggest size that you might ever need or want to use is about 1,000 pixels. So this is wider than it is tall. So it's 1,000 by 669. If it were more of a portrait photo, taller than wide, it would be 669 by 1,000 or whatever that ratio might be. So 1,000 is about as big as you might want this. The one exception to that is for instance, a big giant header photo. And then we did actually use this photo for that cover. So we could have loaded maybe a 1,400 or 1,500 pixel image, and that would be okay. But for images that show up kind of in the body of your website or in a gallery, you want to try to keep those maybe under 150 kilobytes and under about 1,000 pixels. There is an edit image button here. There is an image editor built into WordPress. I would advise that you kind of use this as a last ditch effort. You should really work with your images before you ever upload them to the site. And you can delete the image as well. Down here, we've got alt text. And so I can come in here and say, mountain view with trees. So alt text is a really important thing to do, especially over the past couple of years. Alt text has been around for decades on the internet, and really since the internet kind of began. And it's in there for screen readers, so that if somebody is visually impaired, it will read out the alt text to that person so they understand what the image is actually showing. It does actually help you a little bit with search engine optimization, and you can try to kind of plug some keywords in here. It's not gonna change the world, but you should try and alt tag all of your images as you put them on the site. It is tedious. It does take a little bit of extra time. It's one of those corners that a lot of people cut constantly. But these days, you know, having your website be compliant, ADA compliant, or friendly for folks with disabilities is a really, really important thing. And for some people, it's actually, some organizations, you can actually get pretty hefty fines if you're not taking steps to make sure your website is compliant and friendly for folks with disabilities. The title is typically going to get adopted from whatever the name of the file is. So these are going to match, and that's fine. And then the caption, this is typically going to show up. This text is going to show up to the users when they come to the website. Whereas alt text is kind of hidden. It's seen by Google and it's seen by screen readers. The caption is actually visually shown. And then description is yet one more field, one more option to add some text to further describe what that image is. If you really want to, check all the boxes, you should fill everything in. I'd say the one exception is maybe you don't have to use caption if you don't want the text to kind of show up on top of your image. And then down here we have the file URL. This is the lengthy location of this particular image on the server. This really isn't going to be used very often. The one exception to that is, let's say we were gonna, let's say we were linking a button, like a button for a PDF. Let's say we were linking that to an actual PDF. And you want to say like, hey, give me your email address and download this, this ebook that I've got. In that case, it's really important for you to be able to grab the location of that PDF so that you can plug it in when you create that link. So I'm going to go ahead now and click back on this one that was imported just to compare it. So the name is not good. This means nothing to anybody. The size is way too big, both in kilobytes as well as in pixel size. So we can add this image in, go ahead and select it. But what's going to happen now is it's going to load this full image, and it's actually loading the file that's the file size that we just looked at, and it's scaling it down to fit where we need it to fit. But if you build your site that way over time, it really will get bogged down, and you need to make sure that you try to keep things lean and clean. So, okay, so it was a little bit longer than I wanted, but it's important to talk about images in this process. So the next thing is I'm going to wrap up with the right side of this media and text block. And so I'm going to click in here where content goes. Heading for the cover block. And then I'm going to hit the return key, and this is where, and actually for this, I'm just going to come up here, highlight this lorem ipsum, come down here where content goes, and paste that in. So notice up top here, we've got our heading. Let's maybe make that slightly larger. There we go. See what drop cap does. And, it's up to you if you want to style it out that way. And then we can, again, we've got all of our regular paragraph blocks down in here. So if I click in the center of this block, or if I click kind of out to the perimeter, not in the text here, not on the image, again, it goes back to the settings for the block as a whole. I want to point out one of these options right here, and this is a very quick and easy way to swap the layout. You can just flip it left and right very easily. The other thing you can do is you can change the vertical alignment, and so you can align this differently. Now, it's very, very subtle, but you can see that it just bumped it down just a tiny little bit. And so if the text were a little bit longer, you might not see any movement at all. The text and the image might be kind of matched in height, and that's fine. Okay, and the last thing that I want to point out related to the cover block is over on the right, and that is this stack on mobile. Over the years, WordPress has gotten much better at addressing building out content for mobile. Gutenberg was a big improvement to help out with this. The old school WYSIWYG is non-mobile friendly as it gets. The term for that is responsive. So what that means is that the website will respond to whatever device is asking for it. So we've all seen this, if you pull up a website on your phone, sometimes it's very frustrating because it hasn't been optimized for mobile. So there's a lot of push from a lot of different people and developers and companies to try to make the web and websites as mobile friendly as possible. So this will basically stack the two items on top of each other when it gets scaled down over to mobile. We can also crop to fill the column. Again, since the images and the box on the right are different sizes, that'll just kind of flush it out to fill the whole area. And again, just like with the cover block, we can change the positioning of that right there. And yet again, we have an alt text option down here. Okay. At this point, what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and again update. Notice, throughout the build process, you definitely want to update as often as you can. It does do a little bit of an auto save in the process, but you don't really want to rely on that. You want to update often. And at this point, what I want to do is I'm going to click on this preview button. And this is a really nice feature. Since we were just talking about mobile, one of the things that WordPress has done to help people understand how mobile friendly or non-mobile friendly the website is that they're building, they give you this switch between views. So we're looking at the desktop view. We can click on tablet. And what that's going to do is it's going to kind of give us a window inside of the window. And now what we can do is we can scroll up. So there we notice we've got our parallax fixed background in place still. Here we've got our little gallery and some columns. There's our caption that we added for the Blue Ridge Parkway. There is that one empty paragraph block. There's our Latin paragraph block. Here is our kind of cropped down image based on the width that we now have. There's our heading and our Latin text next to it. And I'm going to do that again. We're going to go down to mobile. And that shows the stack on mobile concept that I was just talking about. It stacks that photo on top of the text to the side. There we go. Looking good. It's getting there. All right, let's click back on preview. We can also say preview in a new tab. And this is basically going to open up the homepage that we've been working on in a brand new tab. And we've got this other tab over here that we could jump back to. So we can kind of see it on a full screen. The screen that I'm on right now is a larger desktop monitor. So hopefully that's not creating any issues in this screen share here. All right, I'll close this one down. I'm going to jump back over and kind of reset where we were at. At this point, the last block that I want to work with is going to be a video block. And then we'll pause for a little bit and we'll answer a couple questions. So, video blocks are kind of neat. They are, they've gotten a lot more advanced over the years. So I'm going to come over here and video. And we've got a YouTube video. And so in the old days, what you'd have to do is you would have to go to YouTube, you would have to, or some video service, you would have to generate an embed code. You would grab that code, you'd go paste it on the site. Hopefully you got it right and the code didn't get out of date or you missed a character or two. These days, because of the Gutenberg block editor, there's a block specific to YouTube. And so what we can do is we can actually just come in here and we can just paste in a URL. So I'm going to go jump over and I'm going to go grab just some random video off of YouTube. We're going to come back over here and I'm going to paste it in place. All right, so I've jumped over to YouTube. You can never go wrong with a good quality puppy video. So I'm going to come up here. I've got this paused. I'm going to go ahead and grab this link that I was talking about. So you just literally go and grab the URL, the address. And then when you jump back over to the website, you can just paste it in. And then click this embed button. And that's going to go out, grab the video. It's going to automatically embed it. Again, the block's responsive, so the video is going to scale for you. Again, you can adjust this. We can make it a little bit wider. That's too much cuteness there. And so let's go back and we'll align center and we'll center it up. But that's a nice feature. The other thing, if I go in, let me go ahead and add one more video block just to show you that if you're not using YouTube, there is also a Vimeo video. You can also, there's kind of a native built-in one. So you can actually upload videos directly to your website and do that. Typically what you want to do is you do want to upload it to YouTube or Vimeo. It kind of helps with bandwidth and server storage and things like that. You don't have to. You can just upload a video directly to your site. And then if you were doing that, and notice the description there to the right, embed a video from your media library or upload a new one. And so that mechanism would give you something similar to what we saw when we uploaded the cover photo, as well as the gallery and things like that. So we could do that. So I'm gonna not deal with that one. I'm gonna remove that block. All right, I'm gonna do a little recap here, and let's go back to the top. All right, we've got our title up top. We've got our cover block that's set to full width with our fixed background in place. Let's maybe make that a little adjustment. We'll drag that out. Down here, we've got our gallery set to a couple columns. We'll go down further. Here's that kind of standard Latin text box that we started with. We've got our media and text block here. We can switch the layout really easily. And we've got our video block down below. So I'm going to update this. And I'm going to click preview, open in a new tab. And again, we've got our front side of the website, our layout. So at this point, we've explored, let's see, 1, 2, 3, we'll count paragraph as a third, 4, 5 different blocks. I'm going to pause the video, answer any questions on these different blocks or about other blocks. I do want to kind of move on. We're gonna get into some of the other pages, but I wanted to at least browse through the primary blocks that are typically used on most sites on different pages. So, all right, hang tight.